Hello and welcome to Proc-N-Roll, your guide to practical procurement, where we make procurement rock and roll. With me again is Natasha, the pro CPO. We've got Conrad again, the former CPO of Adobe, and now the founder and CEO of Graphite. And you have myself, the management consultant, who will do his best to get you some real insights from the other two CPOs. We join you with almost 70 years of practical procurement experience, and here at Proc-N-Roll, we'll discuss the latest and greatest trends and topics in procurement. At the same time, we'll walk and talk through the cornerstones and the key building blocks of procurement. So whether you're new to procurement or a seasoned veteran, we have the discussions that will elevate your thinking while keeping you grounded in practical procurement and value. Ultimately, your jobs, our jobs at procurement exist for one purpose, and that's to enable the business success for organizations. So, Natasha, Conrad, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Zach. Doing great. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Very well. Busy as usual, but we try to squeeze these episodes in because I think they're very valuable for me and hopefully valuable for others as well. How about you, Conrad?
Doing really good. I'm realizing we're on three different sides of the world today. I'm in Hawaii, you're in London, and Natasha's in near San Francisco. There, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a small world and such a cool. It's so cool that we can continue this relationship and these conversations no matter where we are.
Absolutely. Although at some point, probably want to get together and do some face-to-face recordings. Maybe when we're a bit more seasoned and not so amateurish. Get some cool equipment. Great. So today's episode, I think, is really going to be quite interesting. So it's about the fastest growing skills in procurement. What can make or break a procurement career? I'm really interested in this topic because both of you have been in procurement for a long time. And last time, if you remember, we talked a little bit about how procurement is moving from a strategic to a more tactical, from a tactical to a more strategic function. And we talked about at the organization level how procurement works. But now I think we bring it down to the individual, right? To people actually working in procurement day in, day out. What sorts of skills should they be looking to acquire and develop over time? And I think we each had a small task to go away and think of kind of what our top 3 skills of the future are for procurement. So yeah, let's start there. I don't know, Conrad, or have you seen a big change in skills over time in procurement and the different leadership roles that you've had?
It's a great question. I see technology and things changing around us, but I think the core skills, I don't know if they've changed too much, and I'm not sure how much they change going forward. It'll be interesting to see, like, again, technology changes. So, understanding AI, like these big hype kind of things, like being able to deal with that stuff, sure. The skill that stood out to me the very most in the early part of my career was, curiosity and a love and a passion for data. And we can talk a little bit more about that. But the thing that stood out to me as I got more mature in my career was the importance of EQ, maybe layered in with IQ, like the ability to really build relationships of trust and talk to people and, really be that customer focused sort of person, which is a little different than like how traditional procurement was thought of. So those are probably the 2 biggest things that I've seen through my career. And if I look at those to your question and say, hey, do I think those are going to change? I don't know. I mean, I would, as much as you AI data, it's so much easier now than it used to be. If you're not curious and you don't love data, you're probably not even going to ask AI the right questions. Like, you're just going to be like, oh yeah, AI will take care of it. Like, I don't even need to think about it anymore, which is just the opposite of probably what needs to happen. So I don't know that those things really change.
What about you, Natasha? Do you agree with that? I mean, data and kind of stakeholder engagement and EQ, as Conrad put it?
You stole my line. Literally in my notes, it says endless curiosity. I want to double click on it, right? Because in procurement, we very often deal today with something that we've never dealt with before. And I think that very successful procurement professional is the one that combines this endless curiosity with problem-solving skills. Because if you, like, curiosity is absolutely necessary because we, in our career, will buy everything from toilet paper to private jets, right? And it's how do you learn and how do you prepare yourself to be familiar with different markets, to know what's happening. Like, is it the buyer market, seller market? Are there acquisitions in the industries that has a lot of suppliers and all of that? So there are many aspects of procurement that you kind of like have to process and absorb. And when it's multiplied with the problem solving, it just means that curiosity brings you to a problem more ready than you would be if you wouldn't be curious. And your problem solving skills help you to wrap your mind in a structural way around the problem that you haven't faced before. In other words, you're facing something completely new. But if you have a structured way of thinking about how do I approach anything that comes my way if I haven't faced it before, with a little bit of preparation, that your intellectual curiosity helped you to accumulate the knowledge before you face the problem.
Well, that's one vote for me. That's a perfect number 3 for me as well. Love it.
We already have 3 future skills then, which are also past skills. But how does it work for real teams, Natasha? So, I mean, a lot of teams are structured around certain categories, right? And they look for category managers and experts who have deep industry expertise. It's kind of one category. It takes you a long time to sort of learn it. On the other hand, you do have some more generalist type procurement pros who do exactly what you say. Curiosity drives them. They're problem solvers. They seek the expertise. They bring it into the process, etc. Is it something that procurement functions should be thinking about? Are we moving away from this sort of category manager experts? Now you need to do more. Or are you saying actually within the categories themselves, we just have more complexity and more things to do?
Yeah, actually, I think that the future is actually moving away from generalists more to specialists,
Right.
Because I think this is what technology will bring to our workplace, is actually solving a lot of general and tactical and transactional activities, right? But even within the same category in the vertical, you can go very, very deep. If I take any category of spend, right? I don't know. Do we want to stick with proverbial toilet paper?
It matters most.
Why not? Exactly. That's an everyday consumption item, right? And you can learn a lot about paper. You can learn a lot about ecological impact of paper. You can work with designers a lot around packing, how much plastic you're using. Are you wrap individual items? Are you wrap the package? You can learn about how to price it. You can learn about how to ship it. Do you ship it with the bulky items? Let's say, do you build a partner with another company that ships bulky items, and in their truckload, they have a room, they have 15% that you can fit in? What does the caliber of the paper mean? How do you make it not as expensive, but also durable, right? So there are a lot of things that if you take a simplest item that the organizations buy, or the more complex, you can double click on everything, and you have to train yourself on double clicking on everything.
And I think that's something
You're making me wonder though, if Zach, if we roll forward into the future and you say AI is going to be doing these things to support us, is AI, like, these 3 things are really good, but is AI going to replace relationships? Like, I no longer need to be good with people because AI will do that. I don't think so. Is AI going to solve problems for me? Maybe, actually, because there's part of the process, Natasha, that you're talking about. Maybe AI can help me solve problems better. Like, maybe even the brainstorming, put ideas on the table that I wouldn't have thought of. I don't know, but I have a hard time seeing really complex problem solving like completely taken over. Like, and then that data and the curiosity piece, for sure, I don't see AI removing the curiosity. But I wonder if AI can do things like the expertise that you're talking about. whether it can assemble all that data and bring it in. So it summarizes it. Like, can I be smarter about healthcare? Can I be smarter about nuts and bolts? Can I be smarter about, like, consolidate the whole world's information about, like, it'll be really interesting to, I don't know. I'm not saying I have an opinion of the answer, but like, where is it going to make me better? Is it going to be in that really deep knowledge, or is it going to be kind of, or both, or across the top of a whole bunch of other stuff?
I concur with that, Conrad. Personally, from my experience, the whole curiosity AI is such a great tool for that, right? Because anytime I have a question pop into my mind, before I used to have to go to Google, and Google used to be a great trove of information. Over time, you had more information put on there. Now Google is just a set of sort of sponsored search results. But if you go to AI, you can quickly get the download any subject, right? If you wanted to learn about toilet paper, I'm not an expert, but if I wanted to learn about that, I would start with ChatGPT today. I'd go to ChatGPT and say, tell me all about toilet paper. How's it manufactured? Who are the biggest players in the market? What are the latest innovations, etc. So it gives you kind of a starting point maybe to sort of propel that curiosity. And then you need to go off and obviously verify all that information is right and build more knowledge, etc. I mean, do you see it that way? Do you use AI at all in that respect?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like, I do it all the time now. I use it around companies. Like, tell me everything you know about, I won't reveal the different companies I'm searching, but usually for me, it's like a customer, right? Tell me everything you know about this customer. How big are they? How much revenue? How many employees? How many of this? Where are they this? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are they struggling with? And it just puts it all together. And unfortunately today, we don't know how much of it's like God's truth and how much of it is like, I got to do more research, but I think that will get better, but it will still always have the limits, right? But yeah, I'm not saying, I think Natasha's right that it blows my mind. In the world today, there is somebody that has built their entire life around sewer, like sewer engineer, that like the treatment of sewer water, water delivery, electricity, like the finest points of really narrow expertise. Somebody is like a mile deep and their whole life is traffic, or cement strength, or like it's insane, that level of depth that's out there. I don't know that really gets replaced by AI, but I don't know whether, if I go hire a purchasing person, whether I need that person, that kind of a person, or a person that can quickly learn enough to show up in a meeting to talk about that commodity, whether it's healthcare or whatever, and contribute and bring the curiosity and the EQ and the problem solving. Natasha, I love problem solving. I think that's a perfect one. I don't know where that goes, but I do think these three pillars, like for now in the foreseeable future, if I'm hiring anyone in procurement, I'm really, I really care about that. Maybe the fourth one I would say is teamwork. And maybe that fits in the EQ space, like it's a branch of EQ. This person works well with other people.
As a procurement professional, I can start negotiating with you because I want to add one more, but it's in connection. It's in connection with, right? And it's Conrad talking about AI utilization that made me think of it. So we talk about intellectual curiosity. We're talking about problem solving. There's one more thing, which is a very important component, is analytical skills, which is not exactly the same as is intellectual curiosity. Going back to ChatGPT that Conrad quoted, right? I was presenting at the conference and my starting point was it was about necessity to transform and why businesses have to go through transformation. And I looked at the list of Fortune 500 companies, the original list that was put together 69 years ago, and the current list. And it's official publication in Forbes, right? In Fortune 500. And so there are 49 companies from the original 500 that still exist in the business. For 49 years. I went to ChatGPT asking them, which companies are still in business since 1955? And it gave me the list of 49 companies. The problem is that 11 of them were never on the original list. When I asked ChatGPT, it's like, that was found in 1984. Why is it on the original list? It's like, oh, you're right. Sorry. Thank you. Keep bringing the good knowledge. Right. So I'm like, if I wouldn't go through this list of 49, then I wouldn't catch it. Then I would stand in front of the very respectable audience and I would feed them incorrect data. Right. Or if someone would ask me a question, I wouldn't be prepared. Zach, when I went to visit your motherland a couple of months ago to do the hike, and I put in ChatGPT, what's the best path on the Thames path to go around which towns if I want to cover 55 kilometers in 2 days? Give me a perfect path. It was beautiful. It was magical. The only problem is that 2 bridges were closed. And what was supposed to be 55 kilometers became 65 kilometers. It took 6 extra hours, right? So
I think Vicky didn't tell you need to swim. Bring your swimming suit with you.
it's kind of like intellectual curiosity, problem-solving skills. You have to have analytical mind if you're in procurement. You have to be curious to analyze things and kind of like it's not that don't trust anything, but double check. Make sure it passes your sniff test.
Yeah, no, I think it goes hand in hand with data as well, right? I mean, to do analysis, you need data, you need information. I mean, I don't know where it leaves us on the AI question because AI is it a skill? There is an emerging sort of skill set called prompt engineering, right? Which is how you prompt the AI engine to give you the right answers. But I think the points you made, Natasha, are quite salient. That I'm not sure you can really trust AI in that way. But bringing it back to skills, right? So we talked about problem solving, we talked about teamwork, analytical skills, emotional intelligence, having a passion for data and a curiosity about the world. What about some more technical type skills? Have those changed fundamentally? I mean, prompt engineering could be a good example. What are maybe some other technical skills that procurement pros need to be thinking about?
Well, for me, let's say in the hiring decision, I got to a place where I like, aside from these items that we're talking about here, like you've never done procurement before, I don't care. Like the technical aspects of procurement, like I don't care. Like I think procurement is something that you can learn, and I'm not sure curiosity is something that you can learn. And procurement, like 5 to 10 years of procurement learning is really helpful versus 5 to 10 days. But some of the very best people, I hired a guy, Jared Justice, super smart guy. For years, I had this one person I trusted always said, he's the smartest person I've ever. He's just so smart. I had him interview with one of the VPs in IT, which was, looking back, I was like, I'm not sure I should have done that, but I love this lady. And I was like, he's going to work with her and I want to give her an opinion. And she interviews him and she comes back and says, no, you can't hire this guy. He's never negotiated software. We do SAP. We do all these big, Salesforce. Like these are really complex. Like we need someone that's done this before. And my gut was, I got to put this guy in the job. I brought him in, I hired him, put him in the job. 6 months later, I swear this is true. She tried to take him from my team into her team. Like it, so it's that they've done the exact thing before, I think is less important than these underlying skills. This just, if they can't use software, like they don't belong anyway. There's probably some of these other technical table stakes kinds of things, but I would focus on these things that we've been talking about. If I was hiring someone today, that's what I would go for. And sorry, I don't want to talk too long here, but if I was looking at like someone I really trusted and mentoring them, I would focus on these same things. And like the data, the curiosity, the problem solving, the teamwork, and the EQ. Like these are the things that matter most. And by the way, those transfer as well. You come in as a buyer, a commodity manager, a sourcing person. Those are the things that will make you excellent. And as you rise through the ranks and become a senior leader, CPO, you name it, those are the same skills. It's really interesting to me. Like doing those and doing those really well are the things that work all the way up the ladder. Natasha, you were a CPO. Like, what's your view of that difference in like how does the skill have to change when you kind of your entry person versus now you're a CPO?
I'd say, and I don't know if my case is a typical case or not, but I actually did not have to think about technology for the first 15 years of my career at all. Right? I sourced software. I negotiated with Oracles and Microsofts and Salesforces of the world. But again, once you understand how you create negotiation strategy, the category you negotiate really doesn't matter. But the higher I went, the more I had to pay attention to how technology supports, not just supports procurement, but how it makes the entire procurement, purchasing, buying, supplier onboarding, payment process as easy as possible for the rest of the organization. And actually, the higher I was progressing in my career, the more I dipped my hands and committed my time to understanding technology. And now, as I
Like procurement technology, is that what you're saying? Like the technology that supports the procurement process?
But at some point, procurement technology cannot be separated from the rest of technology that the company has, right? Like you have to understand if you're buying O9 for supply chain, how it's going to sit with your ERP and how it's going to interact with your Coupa, right? So you have to start thinking, I had to start thinking overall about how does procurement enabling the company to do everything from bringing supplier on board to ending the relationships with them and all 15 steps in between. That the procurement enablement technology does not sit on its own. It's connected to the technological infrastructure of the company. So you need to understand not just the hardware, but what's the best fit. Is now when I'm working with multiple customers, I am evaluating all existing technology to determine whatever the problem a client is trying to solve, what type of technology solution exists on the market that we can bring in and help them to solve their problem. So from my perspective, the higher you go, the greater need to be your understanding of technology from all aspects of it. How you use it, how it fits into overall infrastructure, what's out there in the market, and how you learn it all. Right. So I wish that I would actually start learning about it and understanding it earlier.
So I would say it's really interesting as you're talking, because part of when you were talking, I was like, there's a layer of that is EQ. Like I'm actually now more worried about the company's experience and in things in a different way, like the impact of what we're doing. EQ is like, I'm sensitive to what I do and say and how it's impacting you. And like EQ of the procurement organization of what is the impact on the business almost? I don't know if that makes sense, but like the bigger picture of EQ, I'm also listening to you hear stuff about problem solving, like you're solving a big issue, the technical architecture and all these other things. So to me, your problems are shifting as you get higher, like this architecture, the technology, these other things change. But I would argue that the reason you got really good at that is because of these underlying skills. Like I care about the impact on other people. I know how to solve problems. I had to get deeper into technology to solve those problems. But anyway, I think I'm not arguing that you're wrong in terms of this is more important. These kind of problems are more important and you understand them. But yeah, I think with your skills, Natasha, that got you successful there. My main question is, do you think those skills are what got you started successfully? And they also is what made you successful as you climbed the ladder? These 4 or 5 things that we're talking about. Or do you think that something kind of things change from when you're junior to when you're senior? Besides the addition of a few of these other things.
It made me a good procurement professional. Whether this skills is what helped me to get as successful career progression as I had, I don't know. It made me a great procurement professional. So it's not modest to say great about myself, but I'm a strong procurement professional, right? If that's what propelled me to VP, SVP, CPO level, that was
I reflect on this as well. I'm thinking, obviously, I haven't reached CPO. I don't know if I ever will, but my skill sets have evolved over time. So things like teamwork and EQ. When I started out, I was great at things like analytics, right? And it was the first thing I wanted to try myself. And I'd get big spend data sets and I'd do deep analysis and build these dashboards in Power BI and Excel. And I thought that was proving kind of how good I was at analytics. But, as you want to take on more and more responsibility, you face into more and more demands of you. And one of those things like EQ and teamwork, those things started to show up on my radar, skills that I really needed to work on and develop. And really that came to me over a long period of time and with a lot of experience, some mentoring, some formal training and also some informal training, etc. I guess for procurement professionals today, who want to kind of rise up the ladder, how do they develop those kinds of skills? Is it just, it has to be done on the job, Conrad, going back to a point you made, or is a lot of this like just natural? Like, for example, curiosity about stuff, or being technically oriented, like analytically minded. Is that stuff that you need to screen for? Or is it something we would encourage people to go out and sort of develop those skills? At the end of the day, no human can do everything, right? So,
Zach, you said you were analytic and then you saw these other things. How did you go build teamwork and EQ? Like, what did you go to do that?
A lot of reflection, like a huge amount of kind of self-reflection, and actually, the thing that sort of unlocked it for me was realizing the value of feedback from other people. Because before that, I wasn't really as open to feedback as I am now. But I realized being radically open and getting the feedback that you want helped me then get sort of different opinions and start to develop themes about what I am actually good at, what my blind spots were, etc. And from there, it was a lot of reading and research. So I use social media. So you follow the topics that you want to develop. So if there was like a team working coach, or something like that, I'd follow them and they'd post like little bits and pieces. And over time, it built this bank of like these skills and I tested them out every now and then. But it just took a long time. And it was, it's a process. I'd say that experience is what drove all that. I wouldn't know where to start if you told me, oh, hey, Zach, your teamwork's really bad and your EQ is really bad. You need to be great at that, next week. I feel like, no, that's going to take me.
I mean, so the reason I asked is I wonder if you already had some of the scaffolding for those things.
I don't think
like naturally, or you like, and I'm not trying to say everyone's born with these 5 things, either you're successful or not. That's not what I'm saying at all. I was just curious. I was curious about that. I think you just put another like big diamond in the middle of our list here, which is radically open to feedback.
Yeah.
Right. Like that, like realizing with that humility that I don't know, that Natasha just did it a minute ago. She was really sort of like, maybe I'm not great. Like that, the realization that we're not perfect and we haven't arrived and we have to keep getting better and better and better. That's a quality. If someone doesn't have that quality, like to me, they're just standing against a wall and they're done. Once you're like, hey, like I realize I've got, I am where I am and I got a lot of opportunity to learn. It's like that wall crumbles in front of them and now they can advance in a way that they couldn't before. But yeah, I love radically open to feedback. Put that one on the list for sure.
I think you can. So I agree with what Conrad said earlier that I can teach someone procurement. I can't teach a person being curious. And thinking about it, it would be good to have natural predisposition for it, but you can actually train yourself by reminding to double click on pieces of information you have in front of you, right? Just as there are a lot of leaders who may be like more business minded, who have higher IQ than EQ, but they train themselves that to be reminded of asking, like, if I get an email saying like, hey, sorry, I couldn't reply to this yesterday. my kid got sick, and I missed the deadline. I'll get to it soon. Maybe my natural inclination is to reply is that, okay, for as long as it's done today, we'll be fine. Then I stop myself and go back to the first sentence and say, I hope your kid is fine. And if you can do it today, that would be awesome, right? This phrase, like, I hope your kid is fine, a dog, a neighbor, it doesn't matter, right? That's a trained EQ. It's possible too. Not everyone is born as warm-hearted as Conrad, right? Some are born in Russia. So we have to train ourselves.
So that's such an interesting point, because if I reflect again on my journey with this EQ, I definitely didn't have the EQ when I started out. And like you said, I did train myself to start doing those things. But in the process of doing that, I became, more emotionally attuned. I started to care more about people.
Exactly.
And so I think it's sort of, I guess it's salient point what you're saying. It's like, keep trying, keep going until you sort of foster that. It becomes almost like a second nature, right? It becomes part of you, right? It's no longer something you're sort of ticking the box on or practicing. But that's kind of how you got to start, right? You have to start by doing it over and over again, and over time you'll realize its value and you'll internalize it. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Exactly.
This is such a cool conversation, because I can picture myself almost every day writing an email, because I'm like, you have task to relationship, like that continuum. Like, I'm a task person or I'm a relationship person. And I was born and raised a task person. And so I'll write an email and it'll be very task email, just like you just said. Well, it'll be great if you can get it done today. And I do that every day, multiple times, where I write the email and then I'm like, okay, why don't you just start the email with, hey, how you doing? I hope everything's good. And I actually have to go back and rewrite the email to be, like you said, to train myself to go back and move a little bit in this email towards the relationship side. It's amazing. And I think, like Zach said, like, I think I'd become a different person. Like, I care more about people. This is so horrible to admit, but I care so much more about people today than I did 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I was just like, just get it done. And now I'm like, and maybe it's because I'm not as anxious about the paycheck and the, like, all these other things, but I love people and I think I always have, but it's like, I've seen my life transform as I've really recognized that part of my life was missing.
Yeah. It sounds like EQ is sort of rising up our list, sort of number one kind of.
No, I would say that it's not that EQ is rising up or curiosity. Is that I think through conversation, we are coming to the point that you can train yourself on getting better. It would be great to have, like, at least the seed of natural predisposition, but you can grow the seed if you focus on it.
I want to counterpoint just a little bit on this stuff, right? Because even though I'm saying, like, I've become more of a people person, like, I wouldn't say that's my strength. Like, just like it, because I'm still writing these emails like a results dork, right? And I have to go back and remind myself. And so I do think in this idea of what skills are more important or most important or whatever, I don't think it's realistic for, like, ourselves or anybody listening to go like, hey, I have to be perfect at these 5 things, like, to be really successful. Because, I think we would all agree that we've got to, like, those things are really important. In some cases, we got to supplement them with people around us. You're building your team. You're a leader. Maybe you're not fantastic about the curiosity. Well, make sure you have somebody next to you that's very focused on that. If you're not fantastic about the people and the EQ, you better make sure you have somebody sitting next to you, because sometimes you won't remember that really sensitive thing, and you need someone to stop you or step in, and even on top of what you're saying, and saying, that's not what matters most today. What matters most today is all these people that are, in a war or in an earthquake or whatever's happening. Like, we need to pivot our focus. Like, anyway, I agree that we can change. I just don't agree we can be perfect. And I think we got to be okay with that, with recognizing who we are, what our strengths are, and then supplementing those however needed.
I have to completely agree. I think don't chase perfection, Conrad. I think it's very hard to, Besides, you can't even, what is perfect? What is a perfect teamwork or perfect curiosity or perfect?
Get you perfect. Nobody mentioned perfect.
No, I that's me. Like I want to be awesome at all these things. And I think the humility, like back to this, what word did you call that, Zach? Like radically open to feedback, like that realization. And I don't remember when it happened in my life, but I actually thought I was like the smartest person in the room. And I thought I was good at all this stuff. And like I was raised by amazing parents. And then there's this moment where you realize like, no, I'm kind of, maybe I'm a little bit better than average, but I'm a long ways away from the very top. And that opens up so much opportunity.
Well, let's zone in on that because that's interesting. I went through the same thing, Connor. I think there was a point where I just looked at myself. I'm like, listen, like I'm not the greatest at anything, right? I'm surrounded by so many very talented people. And even if I get good at something, I always meet somebody later who's even better at it, right? And I think that sort of mindset shift, I think a lot of what we're talking about isn't just skills. It's about kind of mindsets and values and things like that and how those evolve over time. So I think that's in a way even more pertinent, but I don't know what point that was. And if it's a sure thing that everybody will go through that.
Well, you see people that don't go through it and they're older, like they still think that, like, for sure, I don't know. God tends to teach us and humble us in some way or another. Like Earth is the perfect, school for all of us. But, yeah.
I think it's very liberating when you have, when you've built trusted relationships, especially with your immediate circle, whether it's your leadership team or your family. But let's talk about the leadership team. And that when you can openly acknowledge that this is not my strength, I would appreciate if you take it on, right? And the person feels extremely empowered that they are responsible for this thing, that their leader asked for help. And based on how they will do it, the success of organization depends on it. It's very liberating for the person to acknowledge shortcomings, and it's extremely empowering for another person to take the charge.
Love it.
That's been my experience as well, Natasha. I think one thing that I would add to that is you sort of got to find the right triggers. Every person's a little bit different, right? So some people, if you throw responsibility towards them and you give them the opportunity, they'll jump at it. Others, even if you do that, you still need to sort of coach them a little bit longer for them to sort of realize, oh, wow, my destiny's in my own hands here. Actually, I'm really trusted to go off and do these things myself. And, I think that's a little bit around, again, it comes back to EQ and it comes back to radical transparency. And it comes back to also just fostering a really good, positive environment for the whole team, right? Where everyone feels like they have a role and that that they're equally respected and they're treated the same. I guess maybe that's sort of the enabler for people to then go out and try things and develop new skills and, build up their careers.
Oh, this is awesome. Guys, I'm running out of time. So what I'd love to do though is like, what's our summary? Like, what are these 5 or 6 things we just hit on? Because I think we have come up with a list of the hiring criteria or the personal growth criteria.
We have.
I think we got intellectual curiosity, problem solving, EQ, IQ, teamwork, and analytical skills.
Yeah. Then we got also radically open to feedback. We had don't chase perfection. It's not really a skill. I think that's it. Those are the sets of skills. I think you got them all. Passion for data. I think we also said at the beginning.
Yeah. Throw that in with analytical. Yeah. Some of these can kind of clump in together. This is awesome. I really like this chat.
I think we can easily turn this into a framework of skills. But I think what's been eye-opening for me, and just to summarize, is it doesn't feel like there really is a skill to have in procurement, right? It really comes back to having the right mix of skills across different people in the team, having great leadership to drive and foster that kind of skills development. And yeah, just I think EQ seems to be like at the heart of it all as well, like relationships, right? And being able to push those forward. So
you have to have technical skills. The world of procurement is not full of good people. Just good people. It's a skilled good people.
Skilled good people, yeah, exactly. But
Curious good people.
curious good people, yeah, yeah. I do see, technical skills maybe not as heavy as maybe some other areas. Like if you were in accountancy, you need to get qualified and all that. So I don't know in procurement, the weighting for technical skills, is it as high, right? Do you ever need to go get that qualification in data analysis and using Tableau or you see what I mean? But I agree from a category point of view, technical is still king.
Well, you got to be able to do the job. I agree with Natasha. I mean, you're going to negotiate and there's things you need to learn about negotiation, just kind of going in and smiling and like across the board. But yeah, I would agree. I like my last kicker on this is that list that you just said, like I'm in a completely different role than a procurement role these days. And those things are the things that make me successful. I think Natasha, you're finding the same thing in your new role. I think in different functions in different places, like these are universal. Those of you that are starting out in your career and trying to figure out what to do, don't be afraid that getting really good at these things means that, you're only in the procurement success ladder. You can go anywhere with these skills as you really recognize and make them, your strengths.
I think that's a nice way to end it. So, thank you, Conrad, Natasha, as ever. And I hope,
That's a great conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Rock and roll, baby. Let's go.
Rock and roll.